OG boy. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. Know that they ride or die. I keep boys by my side. OG boy.
Welcome to another episode of the A7E podcast. This is your host, Jigadrin. Guys, we're about to take off on episode 14. Today I have a very interesting guest, another mutual friend from my cousin, Monica Gracia. She's very good at networking, and somehow she's not even from here, and she knows more people than me, and I think that's super cool. So yeah, guys, here we have Pete Salazar. Pete, how you doing today, bud?
Doing great, man. Thank you for inviting me over, and thank you for having me on. It's honestly, it's going to be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Have you ever done a podcast before?
I have a few years back. It was just a buddy getting it off the ground.
Yeah.
And we just, talked about random stuff.
Yeah.
So it wasn't anything specific. It wasn't career oriented or anything like that. It was just, let's just have fun.
Yeah.
And this is when podcasts were barely getting started.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Cool, man. How long ago was that?
Like 6 years ago.
6 years ago?
Yeah. So I was a completely different version of me.
Yeah?
Yeah. So it was a completely different interview. I don't think it even exists anymore. Like it might somewhere in the hard drive, but that's about it.
Cool. So you mentioned you were a different version of yourself. What do you mean by that?
So, I mean, obviously, I think throughout the years, people evolve into different versions of themselves. But it's very important to remember the people who you were, because you gotta, even though sometimes we make mistakes and everyone's makes mistakes throughout their lives, it's important to remember those mistakes and learn from them. And I mean, throughout the years, I think we've all made poor decisions in hindsight. And that's kind of like in the past 6 years, a lot has changed. If I can look back in the past 5 years, I'm sure you can look back at your life and it's changed drastically. So I think it was a different version, definitely less mature.
Yep.
Was definitely goal oriented, but with the wrong goals, in my opinion. It was more money motivated as opposed to people motivated. So I think that's what moved me differently back in those days. And that's what kind of, I guess, made me into a different person, like I said.
Yeah.
For lack of a better way of saying it, it was more selfish at the time. But yeah, I think it definitely changed. I have changed drastically in the past 6 years for sure.
Okay.
Since then.
So excuse me. So you mentioned that you were a little bit more selfish, right? And that kind of happens in our immature stages, so to speak. And you say you were a little bit more money motivated, and I would assume now, since you've changed for that, you're more people oriented. Is that correct?
Correct.
So what do you think the benefit to that is, or why is it that you think you changed from that perspective to more people oriented?
Sure. So I think that when you're money motivated, you look at people as money signs, and that's all you look at them as. And it's kind of like big corporations when you look at it. It's like people are replaceable. So if you look at people as money, they're replaceable. And that's the thing. Do you really care about those people? And there's a philosopher, Niccolo Machiavelli, and he talks in the book The Prince about leadership, whether it's best to be feared or to be loved. And when you're feared, people will do the bare minimum, and they will do what you ask, bare minimum, and that's it.
Yeah.
But when people love you, they will go above and beyond to make sure not just they meet their goals, but that the team meets their goals. Right. So, I mean, I was in sales for 10 plus years.
Okay. I was going to say, man, I was getting like that type of vibe.
Yeah. So, when I was 17, actually, so I'll start a little earlier on. It's like when I was 17 years old, I got hired on with Cutco, the kitchen knives. So I started selling kitchen knives when I was 17, junior, going to be a senior in high school, just for the summer. Was terrible. I sucked.
Really?
I sucked.
Was that your first kind of sales?
That was my first job.
Oh, first job.
Yeah. Not even, I wasn't even picked up as a busboy. No one wanted to hire me at the time. So that was the only place that hooked me up. And I'm like, all right, I'm going to seize this opportunity. I took it. I sucked. Next summer, somehow they're like, hey, do you still want to work? And I'm like, yeah, I need work, right? Going to college. Yeah. I had just graduated my senior year in high school. And, I worked there that summer, again, finished the summer, went back to college, and then came back a couple years later. This time I was more in an assistant management position here in McAllen. And then in 2013, we actually opened up a branch office in Weslaco, Texas. And that one actually ended up being the number one in the nation. We won a national championship out of like 300 plus offices nationwide. out of Weslaco, you know, and it was just through hard work and determination. You know, we were very goal oriented as a team. And then the next year, got promoted to run my own office in Laredo. We were the number 1 in the state of Texas, number 3 in the nation. Then
and you were running that office?
Correct.
Okay. Wow.
Yeah, and I worked with like over 400 representatives that year. Wow. Yeah, and we produced around $400,000 worth of sales. So basically from there, got moved to San Antonio. Very humbling experience in San Antonio. Yeah. It's a big fish tank for sure.
Yes.
And then I went back to Laredo, did really well there. And I mean, I did that for about 10 years, man. And after that, it was grinding. You know, it was hard work. It was constantly just sales, business. That's all you thought about.
Yeah.
And it was normal for me to be working from 7 a.m. till 10, 11, 12 at night. Like there was no hours. This is strictly off commission in a sense. Right. So you're working all the time. Even on vacation, you're working, you're on your phone. So it wasn't the best. So then I decided to leave that. I decided it was time for me to move on to something else. I did real estate for a little while, did insurance sales for a little while. It just wasn't for me. Because overall, I felt like the sales techniques were very manipulative, for lack of a better way of saying it. I'm not saying everyone's that way. I'm just saying some of it may seem that way.
Yeah.
Because they're selling off of emotion.
Yeah.
And when you sell off of emotion, people aren't buying off of logic. So I have a saying that I was taught by a mentor early on: when emotions are high, logic is low. So we've all been in situations where emotions are high and we say things that we don't mean. You know, it could be with a loved one, it could be with a parent, it could be with someone else. But you say things in heated moments that you're like, oh man, I shouldn't have said that.
Yeah.
Or in the heat of the moment, you just said that, right? When you think back logically, I wouldn't have said that.
Yes, exactly.
Or I would have cooled off and thought things out. So that's the way I saw it. It's like people are buying off of emotion, not logic here.
Right.
I wanted something that would be off of logic. So when I was in sales for Cutco, it's knives. There's no emotion behind knives.
Right.
It's just straight up like quality products, yada, yada, yada. I can go on and sell you on Cutco right now, but that's not my job. And then essentially 3 years ago, they brought me back.
After you stopped?
After I stopped, they were like, hey, do you want to come back? I said, not in sales capacity. They're like, no. We're going to create a position where you're going to be in charge of just the branch managers. Branch managers go out during the summertime, just pretty much April, May to like August. They're college students. So they get funded by the company like $6,000 so they can open up their own office for the summertime. And they, along with it, they're basically learning how to recruit, train, develop, work with management, work with individuals. And these are 18, 19, 20-year-old kids. And on top of that, the worst branch we've had ended up profiting like $1,000.
Really?
And they learned. You
the
know,
worst,
so
the worst.
The
branch.
worst case scenario is they made $1,000 and they learned what not to do, maybe. But they learned. You know, exactly. It's when you fall on your ass when you learn the most. Yeah. So it's like they learn and they stick around because they enjoyed the experience. So I started that in 2018. 2018, we did. Average branch at the time was selling like $40,000.
Is that a year or
for the summer?
Oh, summer.
For the
That's
summer.
Right, okay.
It was $40,000. When I came in, we went up to $60,000 average. 2020, through the pandemic, we got up to $100,000.
Through the pandemic?
Through the pandemic. So we actually went from $60,000 to $100,000 average, and our group produced like 1.5 million. And then this year, average was lower,
right?
But we had more sales. It was like 1.8, 1.9.
Okay.
And with that, we actually got one of our guys to win a national championship as a branch manager. A guy that I worked with last summer, he won a silver cup this year in a different category as a district manager. And our division as a whole, which is like Austin, Lubbock, down this way, mid-Texas pretty much. Total, we won 6 national championships out of like 12.
Really?
We swept, you know, so this year was huge for us. So that is what I do year round and summer, right? I do personal training. I do bodybuilding. I do online coaching and stuff. And I work at the nutrition shop part-time, but that is what I've built myself to. Because of what I've done in the past 10 years there.
Right.
You know, so my passion is helping these young individuals, make their money, because Dude, I have 22-year-old kids making like 15, 20 grand in 3 months.
Really?
Just crushing it. Like, it makes no logical sense. Like,
Yeah.
I had a kid make 20 grand and he's 19 years old.
In college?
In college. And I'm like, dude, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And the thing is, he's saving that money, putting it away. They're smart financially. These are not kids just giving them random cash. They're smart about it because they worked for it. You know, and it's different when you work than when it's given.
I agree.
So anyway, that's my big thing. When I started seeing the lives that I could impact in that way, not in the money, but in the way that these individuals now have real world life experience at a very young age that's going to make them stand out above their peers. And the way I put it, I'm like, you have 2 individuals graduating from college. A bachelor's degree ain't much today.
Right.
But if you have a bachelor's degree and all things are equal, and you have one who all they did was study, didn't work, and the other one who studied, but they also worked and they did this during the summertime. I'm telling you, because I've had individuals get accepted over other individuals because of that experience.
That makes a lot of sense.
So it's the soft skills that employers are looking for. People skills, communication skills. Because what good is it for you to have this bachelor's degree or even master's degree if you can't communicate with others?
Right.
If you can't interact,
Right.
if you can't have those networking skills.
Right.
You know, those are things you don't learn in school.
Correct.
Those are things you need to work, street smart. You
Yeah.
need to learn those as you go.
Yeah.
So these kids are learning at a very young age what the business world is like, in a sense. And the thing is, you can apply it to any field. It doesn't have to be sales. If you're a doctor, you're selling your services. If you're a lawyer, you're selling your services. If you're in any field, you're selling your services.
Correct.
As a personal trainer, I'm selling my services. I'm the product. So I have to sell me to my clients. So hence why I also have to be physically fit. Because I mean, there are trainers who are not in great shape.
Yeah.
And not saying they're bad trainers, but it's harder to trust a trainer that's not in shape than one who is.
100%.
Yeah. But yeah, man. So like, I'm sorry, I went on a whole different.
No worries. To be honest with you, that was a very impressive little rant you just went on because, I mean, I didn't know that you were in sales, and
I don't recognize all these books.
Yeah, no, do you? Cool. I actually just got these 2, so
I saw.
Yeah.
Amazing book right there, Dale Carnegie.
How to win friends and influence people. You know what? That's the book that I read right before I got into sales.
Yes.
Yeah, and the reason, like, whenever you mention, sorry, I've done sales, is like I'm starting to get that vibe. Like, you're very well spoken. You're interested in the other person. So it's like, because whenever we came in, you asked me about my day and things like that. And as soon as you said that you started seeing people, you're more people oriented as opposed to money oriented.
Yeah.
That's essentially it's not the business model, but the method that one should take in sales. When you care about the people or about people first, the money follows. You know what I mean? Like when you care about the person first, the money follows because I truly think, and especially when you mentioned that you have a passion for helping people, and sometimes we are money oriented first. Yeah. And that is a selfish perspective on most people whenever they take that stance. Because once you get the money, you know, then you're on looking for the next money.
Yeah.
So yeah, whenever you mention that you're in sales, so I like sales.
Yeah.
Personally, I like sales. So I've done sales as well. I took on a franchise like in 2017 that I invested in, and essentially I was misunderstood that when I got the franchise, I was going to be a business owner.
Oh.
So it was not that they tricked me or anything. It's just that I also lacked knowledge. But I thought to myself, the only way that I can get this experience is by going into the field, right? Get thrown into the wolves. And I realized that when I got the franchise, I actually just purchased a position. I purchased the job, basically. Because if I didn't work it, this business would go, down. Essentially, I thought if the franchise was going to be that I invested money, there was going to be a team involved, that I was going to be able to overlook and such. But I had to force myself to learn sales. And that was the book that I read right before I got in. Yeah. And it's not for anything, but that book is absolutely massive. Like it truly gives you a different take on people specifically.
Yes.
And if it wasn't for that book, I don't do that business anymore, but if it wasn't for that book, there's no way I would have been able to survive as long as I did.
Yeah. I agree.
So that's amazing. And are you still doing that now? You overlook.
Yes. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. So we just finished our year literally Monday, the day after Christmas. That was or the 2 days after Christmas. That was the last day. And then sales reports weren't officially out. We had already locked in 4 championships, but the last 2, it was a grinder. And we got them, so it was great.
In regards to a championship, what do you mean by a championship? Like, how is that a competition, I assume?
Yeah, so there's different offices throughout the nation. There's, I believe, 7 or 8 regions. And then those regions are divided into, so Southwest region, we're part of that, which is about 8 states. And then from Southwest, it gets divided into, I think, 8 divisions. And then we're the Lone Star division, which is Central Texas. There's Texoma, which is the North Texas, almost Oklahoma area, and DFW area. And then there's the South Texas division, which is pretty much the Valley and a little bit of Corpus. Right. But I work specifically with Lone Star. So divisions compete against divisions. And then there's subcategories as far as offices go, because in a division, there's going to be districts, and branches are the ones that just open for the summer. Right. Districts open year round. So that's what we're talking about is there's different categories that they have. I think there's I want to say 14 categories. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, there's office, there's division total, there's the branch one, there's district teams. So if a district manager develops several other offices, it's that branch manager. It's kind of like insurance when they have several offices, same concept. So that's the different categories we want. And I can't name them off the top of my head, but it was 6 total. Yeah.
What, in regards to, you mentioned you have people that you oversee that are in college that they're making pretty good money for being in college. And you say that these people have been accepted over people who just have, let's say, a degree, but don't have real people experience. Mm-hmm. If you could only choose one, either education or people experience in the streets, which one would you pick?
People experience.
Right?
Yeah. I personally do not have a bachelor's degree. Yeah. Not a lot of people know that. Mm-hmm. I don't go around saying it. But I also don't go around pretending like I'm sophisticated. Right. I learned from what I've educated myself on. I went to college for a few years, for about 3 years. Mm-hmm. But just at the time, I was offered an opportunity. I was very tight with the UTPA. At the time, UTPA. Right, yeah. RGV. UTPA student government. And actually, I met with the president of the university. The president of the university. Sat down with him. He's no longer there, but I sat down with him and I explained to him, here's my game plan over here that I'm offered. Here's the game plan if I continue college. And he said, do this. Leave college. And I remember at the time I was like, dude, you're supposed to be convincing me to stay here. Mm-hmm. And he's like, look, this opportunity is coming to you now. College is going to be there forever. Mm. So you can always come back and continue your education. Right. But if this is the time you need to strike the iron while it's hot, go do that and then come back later on. So if I had the choice, I have no regrets on that. Okay, cool. My family was not very supportive, to say the least. But I think as the years have gone by, it's been 10, 11, 12 years now since I started college. As the years have gone by, I think as a whole, we're starting to realize that the education system can be a little skewed sometimes. Yes. And that it's not necessarily designed to benefit the individual, especially with the student loans and all that stuff that goes into it. And I just think that's ridiculous, having student loans that hold over your head your entire life. Yeah, and it's literally the one debt you cannot get rid of. Yeah. Even through bankruptcy, you cannot get rid of it. And it follows you to your death. Mm-hmm. And if you die, it follows the next person. It's the worst. Yeah. So I think it's insane that we're pushing this, for lack of a better way of saying it, is this agenda that if you do this, you're guaranteed to get a good, nothing's guaranteed.
And I think that is a massive misconception. Correct. That a lot of young kids coming out of high school, I think that's the way they see it and the way they understand it. And I think that's what it's kind of being pushed in the high schools.
And it's because it's not their fault. Right. And honestly, I don't think it's even the parents' fault.
I agree.
It comes down to the fact that that's the way things used to be. Mm-hmm. That's the way our parents were taught that. Our parents taught us the best that they could. Correct. They taught us what they know. So they're not doing it out of malice. They're not doing it to screw us over. Parents want to help us. But ultimately, that's all they know.
Yes.
Right. But as the world evolves and we're seeing there's kids making millions of dollars off of Twitch, man.
Yeah.
Like when our parents said you'll never make any money playing video games, like, yeah. Like, what about that kid?
Yeah.
And there's that Ryan kid. He's with just opening toys on YouTube, millions of dollars. And he's like less than 10.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like the world is changing.
Yes.
And we're coming to a place where education is important. It is important to know your basics. It is important to know your fundamentals. But when it comes down to it, I feel that there's the opportunity is there for individuals who have the tenacity, the drive, the hunger to just thrive and just push. And that's one of the things that, even though I don't have a degree, I'm constantly working.
Right.
I'm constantly hustling. Why? Because I know I need to prove myself more than those that have a degree.
Yeah.
And the thing is, no one really knows till now.
Yeah.
No one really knows because, again, I just carry myself.
Yeah.
And I work with what I got. And I know the areas of expertise that I have. I know that I'm an expert in those areas.
Right.
Now, obviously not the best, but that's my area of expertise in a sense.
Yeah. Man, that's phenomenal because in my opinion, I would choose the same. I would choose the same. Definitely people skills, to call it that. I think people skills will get you in places that, a degree can't or a degree won't. Now, obviously, I agree with you in regards to doing both, obviously, to the best of your ability. Education is super important because if you're not educated enough to have people skills, might not even be an opportunity.
Yeah.
I was actually thinking to myself, I had a conversation with one of my family members, and so I don't have a bachelor's degree either. So one thing that I did when I was in college is I went to college for 4 years. I didn't get my bachelor's degree because after my first 2 years, I went to school in Wyoming, Powell, Wyoming. I got my associates there. But when I transferred I actually was in Laredo, to TAMU.
Nice. Okay.
Yeah. So I played soccer there. When I transferred, my credits didn't transfer over. So essentially, I was transferring from getting my associate's degree to basically almost
Freshman.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And they're basically saying, well, we can't count a year and a half worth of your credits. And that, to me, all I wanted to do was play soccer. So when they told me that, I was like, there's no way I'm going to finish here because I don't plan to stay here after 4 years. So I left my I left like the my fourth year. Okay. After my fall semester. So I left in Christmas to try and go and pursue like a soccer path. Trained for about 6 months. Met a lot of phenomenal people. I went to Germany to try and played a bit, played semi-professional in South Carolina and things like that. So I got around to be able to travel quite a bit and play at a high level. But in the meantime, I was very conscious and I thought to myself, hey, like, I know I'm not in school, but I have to develop myself in a way that I can speak to people and get into doors that in case this does not work out, I need to be able to get into doors that obviously the bachelor degree that I don't have can't get me in. Yeah. So that's what I would do. I would talk to a lot of people. I know I had a coach in South Carolina that he was a very successful guy. He was actually the coach of the semi-professional team. And I remember the day that I told him and I saw him that he was successful. And I told him, I was like, Coach, his name's Coach Paul. I was like, I see that you're very successful. I was like, I want to be successful as well. I was like, what can I do? I would like to somehow be under your wing. And he essentially came about being a national manager for a fresh company. It was a soccer company that provides soccer camps over the summer for kids of different levels. And he brought me on as a regional manager. I had no sales experience, right? I hadn't even read that book yet. So that was way back. That was way back. I had nothing, but he's like, don't worry, I'll train you. So it worked out. I learned a lot of sales there.
Okay.
I learned a lot about sales there, but I was probably 2% of what I am now. And
very
I'm not
green.
Oh my gosh. And it was a bummer because I know that if I would have that position now, with the experience that I have and the way I am comfortable speaking with people, random people, and I enjoy speaking with people, I know that my results would have been better. So it was a phenomenal opportunity, just bad timing. But the point of that is I went after it. Like, I wasn't scared to ask someone that I wasn't close to for an opportunity. And I didn't care how the opportunity came. What I cared about was getting into the opportunity first and then learning as I go and developing it as I go. And I was thinking back to myself, and not every single job that I've had that were great jobs were literally by asking. It was, I was actually a high school coach at Ed Couch Elsa.
Okay.
Nice. Soccer coach.
Soccer.
And I helped with the teacher assistant. And that job came about me just talking to someone and saying, hey, how's Ed Couch soccer going and whatnot. And I was like, I'm interested in coaching. Is there opportunity? He's like, yeah, there is. Apply. And then boom, literally like a couple of weeks later, I got the job, and nice. I started off at a really good pay. And so everything that I have gotten in the past has been from simply speaking to someone, telling them that I'm interested. What can I do to be a part of that? Mm-hmm. And it's came about like into fruition. Mm-hmm. And that's something that I don't think just a degree could get you.
I want to point something out. Yeah. So I'm sure when you mentioned this, like, hey, I'm interested in this, it's not just a handout.
Right.
You're exchanging.
Yes.
You're telling them, here's what you get in return. Mm-hmm. If you happen to have something, here's what you get in return.
Right.
And that's very important because you just try to sell yourself.
Exactly.
So it's sales. And I think that's something that people overlook is what I always tell people is, look, what happens if you don't ask? You're in the exact same position you're in right now. What's the worst that they can say if you ask is no, and you're where you're at right now. Right. What's the best that can happen? They say yes, and boom, you're in the door. Literally, just gotta ask. Mm-hmm. Yeah,
I agree.
Ask correctly though.
Yeah, it ask correctly for sure. It's not just like, hey, can I have it? Yeah, no, have it. But they have to see something in you. I know that my coach, without the experience that I had, he told me, he's like, I really like that you had the confidence to come and ask me for the opportunity. I can see that you're not scared, and he's like, that's something that I can work with. Yeah. I'll coach you and I'll teach you as much as I can, and then we'll try to go from there. And that was the same for the Ed Couch. Obviously, with soccer, I had all the experience I needed to at least get in, and they knew that. But to this day, that never would have happened if I just did not ask.
And I think another thing is your coach. What was his name?
Coach Paul.
Coach Paul. The fact that I want to point something out about him is that he is a true mentor.
Yes.
So mentors actually want to teach people how to do stuff. And there's people who claim to be mentors and they just want to keep everything for themselves.
I agree.
But it's like, no, true mentors, they want to help people. You ask for help, let me show you.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're so eager to hand that knowledge down. And that's what true mentors do. I've been fortunate to have amazing mentors in my life that have taught me very valuable life lessons. So when it comes to mentorship, like I said, I've had the pleasure of having amazing mentors in my life. And actually through Cutco and Vector, Vector is the marketing company for Cutco products. I actually had the fortune of having great mentors through there. And they taught me one of the things was having 3 levels of mentorship. So the first level is obviously having a mentor, someone you look up to that's going to teach you whatever area you want to learn in, right? You have a mentor. You have to have a peer. That's the second level. So someone a peer, okay. Someone you can see eye to eye. That's your running buddy. That's your partner, right? Not someone you look up to, someone you can work with. So think of it as your training partner.
Right.
And then you need to have a mentee, someone you're teaching this information to. When you teach people stuff, you retain that information much better. So it's important for you to have all 3 levels so that you can grow as an individual.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. That's one thing that Patty Breton, she taught me. Nick Matlack, give credit to him, he taught me as well, is that those 3 levels are so important to have. Because if you have one of those levels missing, then you're truly lacking in an area of growth. You could be growing at a faster and a better pace if you have all 3 areas.
You know what, man? I've always wondered what a good structure is for a person to develop in a much smoother, positive direction. Mm-hmm. And I've never heard that before in my life. Obviously, I've read certain books and I've never heard it structured. So you're saying you want a good mentor, someone you look up to.
Let me put it to you this way. I have my coach, I have my training partner, and I have clients.
Okay.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it. So my coach, Sergio Oliva, he's my coach, he's my mentor. My peer is Wiley Tisdale, he's my training partner, and then my clients, they're my mentees, are my clients. Yeah. You know, so I'm teaching them also from stuff I'm learning from my coach.
Yeah.
And guess what? With my peer, I'm learning from him. He's learning from me.
Wow.
So we're just constantly growing.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
I knew for a fact that the more you teach, the more it stays. And also, and one of my philosophies is like the more you teach, the more you learn as well.
Yeah. The more you retain.
Yeah, retain for sure. Man, that's a beautiful structure, and that made things so clear for me. I've always wondered, it's like, what is it, and how is it that these people have a structure where they can develop from just more efficiently?
Yeah.
And I like that. So that was amazing.
Thanks, man. Well, credit to people who gave me that info,
for sure. Cool. So we just went on that was a good topic there.
By the way, if you're gonna have me on, I go on rants.
Yeah, no.
That's what happens.
And I appreciate that. One thing that I try to tell everybody when they come on here is I try to stay away from an interview structure. Like as soon as you started talking about that other thing, I was like, let's go there. You know, I have some points topics that I sent you, but that's not essentially what it has to be.
Yeah.
So obviously I know you through my cousin Monica more from the fitness aspect, right? And you just mentioned that you were a personal trainer. You have clients as well. Talk to me a little bit how is it that you even got into fitness? I know that, I mean, you were in Coco, you still are.
Yep.
You're helping out with that, but where was the shift from what you were doing into fitness?
Yeah. So a lot of people have asked me, like, how long have you been working out? That's like the big question. I'm like, well, honestly, like 10 years.
Okay.
11, 12 years.
Okay.
Because my my training partner, Wiley Tisdale, he's my best friend. And on top of that, we've been friends since literally college. Like we were college roommates. I walked in on him taking a nap. And then that's how we got introduced to each other.
Okay.
He's like, who the hell are you? Like waking up from a nap. I'm like, oh, I'm your new roommate. And there you go. He's from Zapata. He was a power lifter, all state. And he still does powerlifting today. But he moved over from Laredo to McAllen. And we started, let's go train. And we started training once in a while. And then eventually it's like, you're officially my new training partner. Like even my coach was like, he's your new training partner. Why? Because you need a solid training partner if you really want to grow in bodybuilding. Yeah. You need to have that peer, right? I agree. So anyway, so we started training together, and that's what's really helped me out. Sorry, I lost track of where I was going.
No worries. No. So
I like totally lost track. See, that's what happens.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So I was asking, so where was the transition from?
Oh, the transition. Yeah.
Exactly.
So he started me off over there in college, just training. And it was powerlifting. And then throughout the years, I've worked out. I worked out for several years, but never took it seriously. Right. Just kind of like, I ate what I wanted, but I'm working out, so it's balancing. That's not the way it works. That's not the way it works. So throughout the years, I just gained and gained and gained until... So then when people ask me how long have you been working out, I'm like 12 years. But how long have I been taking this seriously? For about 3 years.
Okay.
Because it was about 5 years ago now. 5 years ago, December 26th, was officially now on December 26th this past year was my 5-year anniversary of no alcohol. So I stopped drinking 5 years ago. And then from there, it was, you hit those oh shit moments where you have those wake up calls, and it can be in any area. But when it comes to weight, you hit a number where you're like, oh crap. Yeah. This is not good. Like, am I bulking or am I just fat? Yeah. And that's where I came to the crossroads at. And I literally went to All-Star Nutrition here in FAR, and I looked at the in-body analysis. I'm like, holy crap. I'm 305 pounds. I'm 38% body
You were 305?
fat. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait, how tall are you?
6'1".
305?
6'1". Wink.
Yeah.
I'm 6 3/4.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, 6'1". I was 305 somewhere later, and like 38% body fat. I'm like, oh, this is not good. So that's when I got, okay, I need to do something. So then I started like working out. I started eating cleaner. The guys there at All-Star helped me out. And that's literally my introduction to All-Star Nutrition.
Yeah,
it was like the first time I ever went there is in-body analysis. And then from there, the rest is history. And then from there, I lost like within 5-6 months, I lost like a good 60 pounds.
In 6 months? Cool.
Yeah, I got down to 240, felt a lot better, but I lost a lot of weight, not just fat.
Right.
I lost weight. So
real quick,
Yeah.
What can you educate us a little bit on what the different? Why did you say it like that?
yeah, so to emphasize, like when I lost weight, I lost body fat, but I also lost muscle in the process because I didn't know how to properly eat. I didn't know what foods were right or wrong. I just knew I had to follow a certain macronutrient diet, which that's a whole nother conversation.
Yeah.
But I just followed a basic diet and it helped me, right? And then from there, I was talking to a girl at the time, a really good friend, and she actually was part of Gym Addicts and with All Star and Alpha Subs, and she was doing bodybuilding, and I was helping her out through her prep and everything, and I kind of thought, not like if she can do it, I can do it, but it was like, there was enough people around me that were doing some kind of bodybuilding or had asked me like, so you're going to do bodybuilding? Why? Because a lot of people are doing it. And I'm like, no, I don't think it's for me. And then when she was doing it, I'm like, you know what? I'm going to hire a coach.
Hire a coach.
I hired a coach. I hadn't hired a coach up to that point. So I hired a coach, Joey Rodriguez, and I had known him for about 10 years. And he had been consistent with his personal training, with his physical health, with bodybuilding himself. And I hired him. And I said, I want to do a bodybuilding show next year, 2020. And
You said that?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
And he's like, all right, I paid him right then and there. He was living in San Antonio at the time.
Sorry, was this after you lost the 60 pounds?
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah. So from there, he's like, all right, let's prepare. Let's do a show. What are you thinking? I'm like, May 2020. I'm like, all right, cool. Everything's looking amazing for 2020. So that's what we thought, right?
Yeah.
So we go into it. We start the prep. By December, I think I was at like 210, 215. But the thing is, it wasn't just losing weight. And again, we go back to that question you asked a little while ago. So it was not just losing weight. We were losing body fat and maintaining muscle tissue.
Okay.
So that's the most important part in the weight loss process, because anyone can lose weight. The thing you got to realize is when losing weight, it's not going to be linear. Okay. So that scale right now, I'm currently at like 250. But that scale fluctuates. However, the body fat and the skeletal muscle mass, those two are the ones you need to pay attention to, because the weight doesn't matter. I look 250 now, I look way better than I did 250 4 years ago.
Correct.
Or 3 years ago, right? Because it's a whole different body structure. It's a whole different layout to your body as far as muscle mass and body fat. So that's when I hired him, that's kind of what happened. And then obviously going into the show that got canceled because of so, well, you remember 2020.
Exactly.
So, you were there. Yeah, we were there. So after that happened, the show got canceled and we're like, oh crap, what do we do now? We're on lockdown. Like literally no gyms are open. Nothing but home workouts. I channeled all my weight training into running, and I would run like 5-6 miles a day. One day I just took off and ran like 10 miles.
Really?
Yeah. It's just, I think we all were frustrated.
Yeah.
We had to do something. And then for us that train, it's our therapy.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've explained it to some people don't understand, and that's okay. But that's my therapy. For me, that's what keeps me sane. I have a hoodie from one of the companies that I like to buy their clothing, Dark Sports. And it has praying hands in the back, and it says bodybuilding saved my life. And the reason I live by that also is because I believe that if I wasn't doing bodybuilding, I don't know what I would be doing.
Really?
Because this is my vice. This is my vice. Alcohol was my vice. No longer, So I'd choose this vice over that vice any day of the week, right? But yeah, so once I hired that coach, and then we got to our the leanest I was like 198.
198.
That was the
from 305.
smallest I got, the leanest I got. Right. And then from there, we got to plan out the next show then. So then the next show was September. That one got canceled again.
That's right.
No, it was July, then September, and then October 24th officially, I competed in Houston. Right. Got two first places and a top 3.
Oh, nice.
Did pretty good. But, by anyone's standards, I did really well.
Okay.
But by my own standards, I did pretty good. I could have done better.
Yeah.
And I honestly, I looked at the critique from the judges and all that stuff, and then we just looked at, okay, we got to grow. We got to get better. So then from there, I hired another coach. Nothing against Joey. He's a great guy. He and I are still friends, and we have a great relationship. I just wanted to move on to someone else. Right. That ended up blowing up in my face. Was not a very good coach. Won't say any names or anything like that, but was not a good experience.
Okay.
Left him, and for a while, I've been a huge fan of Sergio Oliva Jr. He's a professional bodybuilder, one of the top in the industry, very well respected. And we had interacted a few times through Instagram, just sending memes or like I reacted to his stories or whatever, just simple stuff. And I would compliment him here and there, like, hey, give him some props here and there, because he was doing great, you know. And so he knew I was a fan, he knew I was a supporter. I bought his stuff, and I finally approached him like, hey, coaching, like, how much would you charge for coaching? Here's this and that. He gave me the rates, and I'm like, all right, let's do it. So I hired him, and it was a big deal. And I'm like, all right, look, this is when it gets serious. You know, it gets real serious. And he told me, I asked him, when do you think we can do a show? He said, with those legs and those arms, probably about 1.5 years.
I was gonna say 2 years, not because of anything, but like if you mentioned that's how serious it was, he's not gonna let you come on. That's okay. And then
so it was very humbling.
Yeah,
I had to have 2 conversations where I was like, what am I gonna do with 2 of my very close friends? Like, I want to compete, I want to do this and this, and like, okay, but when you compete, you halt the growing process. When you compete, you cut back down and get smaller again. It's like, he's a pro. He's one of the best. And he's literally the best poser, like when it comes to posing and stuff in the industry. And I'm like, I think he knows what he's talking about. So 2 of my best friends, they're the ones who guided me, and they're like, it's okay. Yeah. So yeah, it's October 24th, 2020 was my first show. My next show will probably be in the fall of 2022. So 2 years. Yeah. So it's been about 1.5 years now. And trust me, the itch is there. Yeah. I want to get on stage. I see my friends getting on stage. I see my friends competing. I'm like, but I know that when I show up, it's like Sergio said, do you want to show up to a car show with a half-assed car, or do you want the car completed? Like, you don't show up with a half-assed car. You show up with a complete car, ready to rock and roll.
I agree.
He's like, and that's what we're doing. I'm like, okay. I'm trusting the process. You know, so far so good.
Man, that's awesome. So, in the process of that, let's talk about like in the 3 years that you've been taking it serious. Let's get more specific. Since you've reached out to your current coach, how has the process been for you? Obviously, I'm sure there's a certain dedication that it requires, very specific as well. Are you on it 100%? From somebody that has invested, how is that like for someone like you?
I'm 100%. No, I'm just Let's be honest. Let's be honest. Holidays throw everyone off. When your schedule gets crammed, it's tough. I'm human, just like anyone else. I sometimes don't hit my meals. I sometimes forget to eat. It happens. But what helps me hold me accountable is that I have to send him a picture of every single one of my meals every time I eat it. And I have to send him the last set of every single workout every single day. Until I graduate, in the sense of like, all right, you don't have to send me that. Like on chest day, I don't have to send him chest day workouts anymore. Why? Because I graduated. I think arms. No. Arms I still lack. There's another day when I don't have to send him those videos, because you're good. Like, your form is good. You're the, unless we need to
so you send him videos as well? Cool.
Yeah, every single day. So yeah, he holds me accountable to everything, man. Even down to the food, making sure it's timed out like 3 to 4 hours apart. If it's too far apart, why are you taking so long? Well, it's because I have a client. He's like, eat while you're training your client. So literally I'll sometimes be eating and I'll be training my client at the same time. I'll ask for permission, obviously, for my client to make sure it's okay. But yeah, sometimes that's what you got to do, man. Like, it's like, if you're going to be serious, you're hiring someone who's dead serious about this. They expect you to be dead serious. And yeah, when we sent our like Happy New Year, Merry Christmas, he was like, I'm very appreciative for your dedication and your focus. Like, we're going to do big things this year. So that's what we're excited for, man. So that's the past 1.5 years has been building up to that. And kind of to circle back to how I got into personal training and stuff, is like, I basically, during the pandemic, lockdown, I came to the conclusion that either you're going to come out of lockdown better or worse, not just physically, but mentally as well.
I agree.
So I was looking, what can I do? Can I get random certifications? Because one of my friends had a certification through FEMA, and just through that sort of online certification, she had a job doing this and that. Like, it was awesome. So I started looking around, and then and I had already made a decision. I had talked to my coach at the time, like, I want to be a personal trainer and a coach. He's like, start. I'm like, but I don't have the qualifications. I don't have the certification.
Right.
And he's like, dude, you have way more experience just from doing what you've done so far. And this was like barely 8 months in with him. He's like, than most people out there. Not going to name any companies, but there's certain organizations that sell their products that are not good, and they're coaches. And I'm like, no, you're effing not. So, I'm not very fond of them. But the point is, like, they call themselves coaches without any kind of certification, any kind of knowledge or experience, maybe just from personal or stuff they learned on their own.
Yeah.
But he's like, you're learning from hands-on, doing it yourself. So he told me that. I still didn't feel like I could be a trainer. So
why not?
I didn't have the certification. I was taught you need a degree.
Yeah, I was just gonna say.
So I'm like, you need the certification.
Yeah, exactly.
And it helps, obviously, especially because I decided to go through NASM, get a certified personal training certification through there. And once I got it, it was a 10-week program. Did it quick, right? Once I finished it, took the certification, got a job over at Crunch Far because I wanted to learn from Mike Bryant. He was the manager for the trainers there. And then from there, at a certain point, just decided, you know what, I'm going to go do my own thing outside of the commercial gym. Just because commercial gyms, the pay structure for trainers is set up very, very poorly.
I agree.
For the most part. I mean, from all the ones I've seen, to where clients are paying $45 a session, but the trainer's only getting like $12. And the gym's taking the rest. It's like, dude, it's not worth it.
Yeah, and I know that personally because my brother he actually got certified in NASM as well, and he was a trainer at a certain gym, and he would tell me, and I'm like, really?
Dude, I had clients outside of the gym that I would train and clients in the gym, right? I would need like 3 or 4 clients in the gym to equate one client.
One client outside?
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm like, dude, this is not worth my time. And that's what we learned. It's like, and the thing is, it's not about the hourly.
Correct.
It's about what you bring to the hour. And I've been a huge like supporter of that because I'm in sales. It's not about how many hours you put into it. It's about what you bring to the hours you put into it. I could put less hours in than someone else, but I will work harder in those 12 hours than someone in their 40 hours. Why? Because I'm doing it as soon as I can so that I can get this done and get it over with, right? So that's my philosophy when it comes to even training. Like, people ask me, oh, it's a 1 hour training session. I'm like, sometimes it's 45 minutes. Sometimes it's an hour and a half. It's whatever it calls, you know, but I'm not going to skimp you out, but I'm not going to overdo it either.
Right.
Like, it's whatever your body needs. Because sometimes 45 minutes is all you need if you do it right.
I agree.
You know, when you have a trainer there, when you are taking 30 to 45 second breaks, not an hour, not a minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes on Instagram scrolling around. No, 30 seconds, 45 seconds, get to it. You get stuff done.
Yeah, I agree.
And you get work done to your body, you know, as opposed to letting it cool off and then you chit chat here and there, chit chat over here. Like, no. You're there to do work, get it done. This is not a social club. And that's it, right? If you do it efficiently, you can get it done in 45 minutes to an hour. But yeah, that's as far as personal training, that's when it started, man. Because I'm like, you got to do something. You got to come out of this lockdown better than you went into it. Yeah. And I think a lot of people, I'd like to say they did, but there's a lot of people who didn't.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people who didn't. I think, me personally, I was fortunate in a sense that obviously we were on lockdown. Yeah. But I was working in a place that was deemed essential. Okay, so I was able to go to work. Yeah. Still interact with people, obviously with the safety measures that they had in place. But when I wasn't working, I was spending a lot of time outside. I grew up playing soccer, so like I was outside 80% of my life. So it's like that to me was therapy as well.
Yeah.
Being outside. And so I would just go outside. I'd go for runs. I'd take the soccer ball out. I'd train. But I would just get fresh air.
Yeah.
And that's when I got... you know what's funny is that I wasn't always into personal development as much as I am now until about a year and a half ago. So I lived in Austin for a year. I just came back in January.
Oh, okay, nice.
Yeah, so
okay,
just this year. I'm sorry, last January.
Okay. 2021?
Nope.
2020.
2020. Where we at? 2022.
I don't even know when you graduate.
No, 2021 of January of 2021. I came back here.
Okay.
So from 2019 to 2020, I was in Austin.
Okay.
And that's when I got into personal development like crazy, man. I really, really just saw results in investing time into yourself, investing in knowledge and things like that. And you're trying to become a better person, be more aware of other people, how to communicate better, just kind of trying to develop a better perspective on life overall.
Yeah.
And so I was able to do that in the lockdown as well. But yeah, I was very fortunate. And I know some people who weren't.
Yeah.
You know, I know some people who weren't. There's a lot of people who just, I don't know for what reason and why people weren't able to come out okay. Maybe there was a certain level of effort that wasn't given, or just maybe there were in certain situations that didn't allow them to, you know, and it happens. But overall, I think I think the lockdown was a test. In a sense, I'm not speaking about like it specifically being a test, but it was just an opportunity for people to see what kind of what they could have done for themselves.
Yeah.
You know, because it was a kind of a meme quote that was going on through the lockdown was, if like you ever wanted to do something and your excuse was that you didn't have time, you know, and now you had it, you know, then it was just that you weren't interested, kind of thing.
Yeah. And I mean, I believe that. I mean, with a grain of salt, obviously, because everyone has different situations. You can't say that across the board. But I do agree with that, because, I mean, if you've really been passionate about pursuing something, now's the time. I don't have the time. Now you do.
Yeah.
We have no choice, but we have the time.
Yeah.
You know, and a lot of people just didn't take advantage of that. And truthfully, I don't think it's necessarily like I go back. And I know I've said this several times, it's like, it's not their fault.
Yeah.
Because my belief when it comes to people, and I know that was one of the topics you mentioned, is like, I like to give the benefit of the doubt unless I'm given a reason not to.
Yeah.
Right? So, and you can talk about this in many different fields, but it's like, I believe that people have good intentions for the most part, but poor execution.
Correct.
Or they have good intentions, but they've been taught this their whole life. It's like the concept of a bird who's always lived in a cage thinks that flying will cause death because they don't know anything else.
Right.
It's like the allegory of the cave. It's like, that's all you know, what you're shown behind you, the shadows, that's all you know. Otherwise, everything else is scary, man.
Yeah.
Getting out there is weird,
Yeah.
you know? So that's the thing with people being locked down. That's what it caused, right? It caused them to have this sense of comfort and safety, when in reality, the world isn't comfortable or safe at all, right? We just go about it the best way that we can, you know? And unfortunately, that's how some people were affected. And I've seen it in my own family. I've seen it in my own friend circles here and there. And it's unfortunate because it's unhealthy to be that paranoid. But yeah, that's my belief on that.
All right, Pete.
Yep.
Last question. Overall, in your experience of everything you've been through, you're 30 years old. You just turned 30 in September. You've done sales. You're doing personal training. You've gone to college. You've dealt with different types of people in your life. You've gone through different things in your life. At the moment, where you stand right now in the journey that you are, what is the hardest thing about life for you, if there is something?
Yeah. So that's a really good question. And I think this is something that is not just for me, but it's something that a lot of people struggle with. Is, I know there's clinical depression, but I think that when it comes down to depression, there's levels to it. There's stages to it. And I think whenever you're trying to achieve something at a high level, one of the things you're going to have to do is sometimes you will outgrow people in your life friends, family, that's okay. But realize that when you're trying to achieve something at a high level that maybe others don't understand or don't get, you will suffer from being lonely.
Yeah.
You will suffer from being alone sometimes or feel unsupported. And that depression can set in. And that's when obviously things can get a little scary for many of us,
Yeah.
you know, but that's when you have to be able to have that mental capacity and mental strength. And some people don't, some people do. And that's why it's okay to ask for help. I always tell people, like, ask for help.
Yeah.
It's never a bad thing to ask for help. No one's going to dog you for it. No, I mean, they shouldn't, right? Because you are literally just seeking help, right? So that's what I think everyone should be a little more mindful of, is that across the board, if you're trying to achieve something, you going back to what I said earlier about being selfish,
right?
It's like when you're being selfish, it's not just like forget everyone, but it's like, hey, I'm focusing on myself.
Yeah.
I'm focusing on my growth. I'm focusing on my career. That can sound selfish to someone, right? If you have a significant other and you're telling them, I'm focusing on me, or someone you may be talking to or interested in, and you tell them, here's what I'm going for, and they don't align, it's not going to work out,
right?
You know? So, but that's the thing. You have to be focused on what you're trying to accomplish and be okay with the fact that if you really are committed to this goal, you need to be okay with that part of it, the loneliness aspect of it. That was something that a mentor of mine taught me very early on also. It's like, it's going to suck, right? But the thing is, you have to stay focused, stay on that grind. Now, is it possible to have success with people around you? Absolutely. Yeah. It's even better, right? But not all of us have that luxury at times.
And it is a luxury, I think.
Truly. Absolutely. Because not everyone, like, I'm fortunate to have a very supportive family.
Yeah.
For the most part, right? At times when I dropped out of college, stuff like that, not very supportive, but like overall, loving, caring, supportive. And I've had friends who see the way I interact with my family. They're like, that's not the way it is at my house. Mm-hmm. Or I have people in the family who I've married in, and like my brother-in-law, he's not used to the way we treat each other. He's not used to the care, the compassion that we have. Not that his family doesn't have it. It's just they're more a little like stern about things. Right. They're a little more like this. And we're like, hey man, like you need help, you need advice, you need this, you need whatever. My mom always taught us, if you have something, give it, because it pays back tenfold. Right. Right. So if you're blessed and you have something, it could be monetary, it could be your truck to let someone borrow to move, which we've all dealt with. It's like, whatever it is, if you have it, give it. And don't expect it in return is the most important part. Because you shouldn't do things to expect something in return. You shouldn't do something to expect the tenfold. You should be doing things without expecting anything in return. And if you get something in return, great. Right. If you don't, you weren't expecting it anyway. You know, and that's the way my mom taught us, and that's the way we've kind of operated with things, you know. And when I say we, it's my sister and I.
All right, guys. So I'm still new to this a little bit. We have some trouble with the card being full. I don't know why. Every time I do my podcast, I never have an issue with that. And so we did go on the last question that I asked Pete, but it cut off, man, when he was in the middle of something phenomenal. I think that just forces us to do another episode at some point. And get your perspective on that last question. So, guys, we're gonna cut it here because I want to be able to have closure on the episode, and that way I can edit it correctly and upload it for you guys. So, guys, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the 14th episode of the A7E podcast. I am going to put Pete. I'm going to put your Instagram on the video as well. Guys, Pete is I think he's doing phenomenal in his journey. He personal training.
Yes.
Right. Is it cool? Like, I mean, I don't know how many people are gonna watch, but is it cool if people reach out to you for anything?
I do online coaching. I do meal plans and workout plans if that's what they're seeking. Cool. And personal training, of course.
Cool. Yeah, guys. So feel free to reach out whenever I put the social media handle there. Any question that you might have. I mean, if you guys are into the idea of getting yourself a personal trainer and pushing your goals and your limits a little bit, I think Pete's gonna be the person to go to for sure. So, guys, thanks so much for watching another episode of the A7E podcast. This is your host, Adrian. Guys, until next time, thank you.
So next time.